From uninvited guests to ghosts and imaginary friends, as well as the world's most horrific serial killers, this video does a rundown of scary scenarios you're glad never happened to you. You could willingly bring someone into your home, but what happens when you have a house guest that is uninvited and definitely unwanted? This is the case of the uninvited house guest that stalks you and inflicts nervousness and paranoia.
Nervous house guest. The Nervous House Guest is another one of Trevor Henderson's creations. Honestly, this one is probably one of my favorites. He was created by Trevor Henderson in August of 2018. Nervous House Guest is a 45-foot tall humanoid creature. He has huge bug eyes, gray skin, and no mouth. His abilities are teleportation, intelligence, good eyesight, causing mental distress to people by stalking them and grabbing people's hands. And his goal is to inflict nervousness or paranoia onto people by stalking them. It's also said that Nervous House Guest likes to frequent rest stops.
Doesn't it bother you to know why NASA suddenly changed from exploring the ocean and pushed its resources and energy into finding how humans can get off the face of this planet? Only 5% of the ocean, and it scared NASA completely.
Why did NASA stop exploring the ocean? It is said that we have only explored 5% of our oceans to date. This makes it clear that there are many things yet to be discovered. Legends like the Megalodon and the Kraken may not be just myths anymore. In 1958, NASA started exploring the ocean. Here they began to map the seafloor, but something strange happened. The program was abruptly canceled in 1978. NASA's main focus was now to get us off the planet. This makes us think about what really lives in the depths of the sea and what it was that NASA discovered in the deep ocean. And
do you think walking at night could be a lot of fun? In this clip, we get to see that not everyone walking at night is sane, and you might just be safe staying indoors at night or at least walking in a company.
This is why you should never walk alone at night. In 2007, a guy was walking down the street at night when he saw a man standing at the crossroads, moving around strangely. It was a bizarre dance, similar to a waltz. The man was very tall and lanky and wore an old suit. The guy was scared and crossed the road and went the other way. After a few minutes, he turned around to see what the man was doing. The man was now standing just across the street from him. He was grinning from ear to ear and staring up at the sky. The guy was terrified and turned around and walked half a block before looking back. The lanky, tall man was now crouched down right behind him. Luckily, the man stood up and walked away. But it was not over yet. The man had turned around and was now running towards him. The guy managed to run to safety. However,
in this clip, get to see the scariest daycare in the entire world. This is a children's care center for supposedly bad kids, but the actions seem just a little bit extreme.
Scariest moments caught on camera PT.7.
The craziest part about eating food from outside is the uncertainty as to where the meat is gotten from. In this clip, we see a serial killer who not only kills sex workers but grinds and mixes the flesh of his victims into the food he sells.
Who may be triggered by these topics, or anyone who's faint of heart, please keep scrolling. Serial Killers from Every U.S. State, Part 20. Maryland. Joseph Metheny, aka the Cannibal. In the 90s, Metheny would lure sex workers to his trailer before he would stab and strangle them. But it's what he did with their bodies that really shocked the nation. Turns out, Metheny also owned a food stand where he would mix the human flesh of his victims with animal meat and then sell it to his customers, according to The Sun. Quote, "The human body taste is very similar to pork. If you mix it together, no one can tell the difference," he told The Sun in 2015. That's how he earned his nickname, the Cannibal. He was found guilty on 3 murder charges and was facing the death penalty, but in 2000 it was overturned to a life sentence. He ended up dying in prison.
The tale of the Boston Strangler. The case remains unsolved, but one man admitted to the crimes of all 13 murders linked to the Boston Strangler. His tales of admission were never believed till he was murdered in prison.
Who may be triggered by these topics, or anyone who's faint of heart, please keep scrolling. Serial Killers from Every U.S. State, Part 21. Massachusetts. The Boston Strangler. Between 1962 and 1964, Boston was plagued with a serial killer. 13 women were killed in their own homes. There was no sign of forced entry, so police believed each victim let the murderer in voluntarily. Despite the fact that some of the women were stabbed to death, the killer earned the name, the Boston Strangler. His killings sparked a panic in the small city. Albert DeSalvo confessed to all 13 murders, but his story didn't fully add up. He was eventually murdered in prison. The case of the Boston Strangler serial killer is still left unsolved.
In a case of school shootings, it is strange to see the culprit come into the courtroom dressed in a similar regale as they did on the day of the shooting. But T.J. Lane did while maintaining a smug smile through the court proceedings.
Most disturbing courtroom moments of all time. If you guys like these videos and want to see more, make sure you like and follow.
As soon as T.J. Lane walked in, he was executing his plan, taking off his button-down shirt to reveal this, a white t-shirt with the word killer scribbled on it, showing it off with a smug smile on his face. He wore one like it the day of the shootings. Parents of the victims called Lane a monster, a pathetic excuse for a human being, and wished him a slow, torturous death.
I hate you for the pain you've caused, Nick. You chased him down the hall and fired the last bullet that paralyzed him. Why? Why did you do it? Why?
Throughout their statements, Lane just smiled, and at one point even raised his middle finger to victims' families. And his statement to the court, just too vulgar to say.
The Mothman. While this might seem like a fictional character, there have been several sightings of the Mothman, and every time he was seen, something terrible followed.
This is the most dangerous urban legend ever. In December of 1967, something strange was going on. The Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, Ohio just collapsed, killing a number of people, but many people believe this was no accident. You see, just before the incident happened, people said that they saw a humanoid creature with big wings and glowing red eyes flying about. This creature is now known as Mothman. And every time somebody saw Mothman, something bad was going to follow. This ranged from tsunamis, earthquakes, and even the devastating vents of Chernobyl. Mothman just always seemed to be there. People's perspectives were split, some speculating that the Mothman was causing these disasters, while others believe it's an alien trying to warn us about disasters that are going to happen in the future.
To create the perfect crime, you need the perfect distraction. Check out how these teenagers try to distract people in a robbery attempt. Here's a hint. The robbery is an unsuccessful success in the end.
Strange moments caught at Target stores. In this video, 3 thieves tried to think outside the box as they made an attempt to rob a Target store. The video was taken by a surveillance camera, and the footage shows a semi-large fire growing in the women's clothing section of the store. This fire was no accident. The thieves set it in an attempt to distract people while they grabbed items and put them into large bags. However, because Target stores are so large, nobody really noticed the fire until it got very big. One thief stood as a lookout, while the other two grabbed merchandise and shoved it into large bags. When the fire was finally noticed, the entire store was evacuated, forcing the thieves to have to leave too. They did take the bags with them as they evacuated the store, but the fire didn't do enough damage to stop the surveillance cameras from capturing clear images of their faces.
What if those imaginary friends we had growing up were a piece of our childhood we never got to understand? What if those friends were actually ghosts?
Did you have an imaginary friend growing up? Some believe those friends are actually ghosts. Listen to this story. While babysitting his niece one night, a guy drifted off to sleep while studying and watching her from the baby camera monitor. He was suddenly awakened by the sound of whispering coming from the baby monitor. He looked and saw it. On the monitor showed a dark figure in the corner of his niece's room near her crib. Terrified, he ran into his niece's room, didn't see the shadow figure, but grabbed her and ran back into the living room. Eerily, when his brother returned later that night, he asked him not to tell his wife, but said he too had seen that same shadow figure and heard whispers near the crib. They continued to live in that house for another 4 years, and that little girl frequently talked about her special friend. I had an imaginary friend growing up, and now I'm really wondering. What about you? What are your thoughts?
In this video, you get to understand why some kids refuse to believe their imaginary friends are not real.
This video will make you believe in ghosts. Okay, so we all are definitely scared of ghosts and hope we never encounter one. But the video I'm going to show you shows a little girl playing with her imaginary friend, but once her dad enters the room, it disappears.
Amy?
This is a case of a cannibalistic serial killer. Now, what's different is that she not only consumes victims, but also forces victims to consume parts of her.
You wanted to know more about Cherie Glenn, and I found you more. This was the leaked booking photo of Cherie Glenn, one of America's most infamous cannibals from the 80s. So much of her story in these case records had been sealed from the public because it was deemed too disturbing to print. Even this booking photo, it was sealed. This is a leak. They did have somebody submit another leaked photo of this photo. It's just from a closer angle. Like I said, there's not really much that's publicly known because so much of her case was actually sealed. The rumors of the story was that the case was so bizarre and so horrific in the cannibalistic practices that it was difficult at the time to find a jury that could stand it. Descriptions of not only her consuming victims, but forcing victims to consume parts of her. Somebody also reached out and tracked down what they think might be a yearbook photo of her from the 70s. By no means is it 100% confirmed, but it does look really similar to her. It's 100% in the eyes.
If you enjoyed watching these videos, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments section below.